Hey everybody, welcome to Served Year-End Edition. Basically, top 20 players. Women's side, it's going to be part 1. Then we're going to head over to the ATP Tour, part 2. And I'm going to give something that went right for given player in 2024 and something that can maybe go better even in 2025. Everyone on tour, no matter who you are, can improve at something somewhere. Full crew with this, JW, producer Mike, Techie Sean, all looking very tan after some time in the sun away. Mike has basically been on a Caribbean island for the last month of his life.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to file taxes for the month of December.
How are you readjusting to weather below 50 degrees? Is that tough for you?
We honestly got lucky. It's going to be 60 here in Charlotte this week, so I'm hoping it serves true.
Good. So you've missed all the bad weather.
Yeah, I missed all the bad weather.
Congratulations. You smell terrific. Anyway, so let's start. We'll go first 5, so 20 through 16. Coming in at number 20 is someone that we're obviously like extremely familiar with. 2-time Grand Slam winner, former world number 1, someone that we saw recently at Baha Mar. Always fun to get a chance to talk with her. Listener of the pod, which is great as well. We tend to like you more if that's the case, selfishly. But Vika Azarenka, right? What went well for her in 2024? What can go better in 2025? Listen, she's just a producer. She's a competitor. She does not beat herself. When things are firing well, she just knows how to play the game of tennis. She knows how to get through matches. It seems like every time she's starting to fade down the ranking, she's able to come up with a result. So what went well for her in 2024? Nothing out of the ordinary. She just is a really, really, really Hall of Fame caliber tennis player, even if she's not at her absolute peak physically. Maybe she hit the ball harder at some points in her career. Maybe she moved a little bit better, but she's smarter and she can outcompete simply her way to 30 matches. Only played 15 tournaments this year. Even in a year where it's, for as compared to the rest of her career, the win-loss percentages are down. She still won 2 matches for every one that she lost, which there are a lot of people who would sign up for that for the rest of their lives. So what went well? Well, Vika just did Vika. And she's just going to continue to win matches and find a way to win matches as long as she's still around and decides that she wants to play this game. And what could go better in 2025? She didn't play much after the US Open. Basically took 2 months off of tennis completely. When you are someone who has seen the top of the mountain in the game, who has been around for a long time, who has other interests outside of tennis, it's just a matter of how often do I play to stay motivated? Do I want to keep doing this for another year with the training and everything else? For her, similar, like when I retired, I had question marks about whether I could win another major. And ultimately, the thoughts in my head was like, I don't know if I have that lightning in a bottle 2-week move anymore. It felt like work for me, like real work, not like tennis player hard work for the first time. So I think just what does she have to deal with in 2025? There's nothing she hasn't seen before. It's just a matter of, does she want to keep going? To what level does she want to play? Does she want to play 15 events or 25 events? What do you think about Vika Azarenka there, JW?
Vika Azarenka was born the same decade as you. She's born in the 80s. It's been more than a decade since she won her majors, but she still remains competitive. I've got a lot of respect.
She's a winner.
Tennis-wise, I have a lot of respect for what she does off the court. She's a mother. She's very active in WTA and player council and WTA politics. I think, like you say, look, she's closer to age 40 than to 30. On the other hand, she can still play top-level tennis. Can she win a third major? I think that might be a tall order, but she's in the conversation. Keep playing, keep doing your thing.
Yeah, and I was talking with her and talking about different equipment setups, and as we are prone to do when we're probably nearer the finish line than we are at the beginning, looking for those little advantages, a little more juice in a racket frame and string patterns. So she is messing around with those things currently, but listen, she's just a winner. Coincidentally, at 19, someone who we also saw at Baha Mar, who I don't know that well, but couldn't have been lovelier when I saw her, and even saw her interacting at Pro-Ams. Always a smile on her face. She was down in the Bahamas training, doing a 10-day run. Is Donna Vekic, with Sasha Bain. So worked with Serena, Osaka. I love Sasha. I think he is just an absolute worker. Has kind of progressed his way up the coaching food chain to where his resume stacks up against better than most at this point in his career. I like the enthusiasm. Donna Vekic completely won me over this year with the way that she competes. I still remember the Wimbledon semifinal against Paolini did not go the way that she wanted, but was one of the best matches of the year on the WTA side. She was running on fumes, had built up a lot of volume playing that tournament, playing long matches, and you could see and feel her fighting, and then to follow that up on a completely different surface and make the finals of the Olympics. I thought Donna Vekic had an unbelievable year in 2024. Maybe find a way to get that form a little bit earlier to kind of lower the volume of matches played and the drama with matches played. But for this to be like kind of a comeback year for her to finish in the top 20, couldn't have been more impressed with her.
She played the French Open and lost to Danilovic, daughter of a Serbian player, daughter of an NBA player. I'll have you know. Just a gutting loss. Donna Vekic, I think, was up like a set in 5-1 at match point, and she was absolutely destroyed. There were some social media posts where she was very candid. We know a lot about her working and knowing Pam Shriver, who's been part of the camp. She recovers from that, and at the very next major, she comes within a few games of reaching the final, getting to the Wimbledon semis. That's a devastating defeat in itself. She thought she could win the tournament, and then what does she do? She goes to the Olympics and gets a silver medal. So, that says a lot about her resolve. She's 28 years old. It seems like, she's still in the meaty prime years, though she's definitely a veteran. The coaching change, the addition to the team is an interesting one. So Shabain, you see him walking around, and he's a big, he's a shredded, ripped guy, but he actually he's a really good tennis player who started with Patrick as Serena's practice partner. So he's really worked his way up. And I think this 2025 could be a big year for Donna Vekic. I mean, she's won a lot of matches, but she's also won them at the right times. And she's shown herself that she can get back up after some disappointment. One of these players, look for her in 2025. She could make some noise here.
Yeah, one of the best front foot players in the world also. She's kind of learning when to throw the knockout punch. Shot selection, I think, has been rapidly improved with under Pam's guidance, to her credit. When she gets on that front foot, she can absolutely send it, switching directions, playing against people's movement. Maybe those are adjustments that are the difference between 19 and 9, right? Maybe she's looking to crack the top 10 and to make going deep in these huge events like a Wimbledon, like an Olympics, something that happens all the time where it's shocking when she doesn't, right? But all in all, I think, looking back, when Donna Vekic is looking back on her career in 20 years, she will remember that summer of 2024 with Wimbledon, with the Olympics, and I hope very fondly and deservedly so. I thought she really showed a lot of mettle, a lot of guts in 2024. Number 18, Marta Kostyuk. I think anyone who is from Ukraine, we have to start with the caveat of, can you imagine having a career year when your country is in absolute turmoil, and being able to compartmentalize or use your fellow countrymen and women's need for something good to happen, and for it to come out in the wash for having a career year. And it wasn't as if she had that, like a Donna Vekic, where we look at those two massive results, right? And like, look at those. She was winning matches every week. I think what she did well in 2024 is just the overall consistency. I had Mike pull up her results before we got on, and it's, 2 rounds here, 3 rounds here, 4 rounds here. Just a model of consistency throughout the year for someone whose reputation maybe before 2024 was a little bit more mentally up and down, right? So how does she counter that narrative? By winning matches each and every week in 2024.
Yeah, I think let's keep in mind too, you go back to Ukraine. This was February 2022. So sometimes we see athletes and they're sort of galvanized by a situation. This is different. We are almost 3 years into this conflict now. And keep in mind, I mean, apart from the turmoil and the tragedy at home, that affects your training, it affects your base. She was been married in the interim. There's a lot going on here. She's a dangerous player. I think sometimes she looks great. We see her on Tennis Channel, and she'll score an upset, and she'll have double-digit aces, and then the next match she won't come back as strong. So I think projecting to 2025, just sort of that match-to-match consistency and backing up a good performance with another good performance is important. But she's the highest ranked Ukrainian. There are, I think, a half dozen now in the top 100. So a lot of credit to the Ukrainian players. They are women, because on the men's side, a lot of the Ukrainian players are actually serving in a war. And, we're 3 years into this conflict. And I think that's a storyline that must accompany any analysis of a Ukrainian player. But Marta Kostyuk, a nice 2024, and with a little more match-to-match consistency. Let's see what she does in the next year. She's only 22 years old.
Yeah, the inconsistencies now in her game aren't from not winning matches every week. It's, hey, to make the finals of a slam, you got to put 6 together in a short time frame, right? You can't do 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down. For the consolidated run of where we're looking at, the progression now needs to be from round of 16 to quarter semis, finals, right? Like one more good match a week. But props to her, because the results kind of used to look like a heart rate monitor, right? With peaks and valleys. And I think now it leveled out a little bit. Now what you want to do is just raise the floor a little bit week to week. But credit to her for the year she had. Number 17, Beatriz, Haddad, Maia. And I struggle with some players that you look at, and 36 and 27. Played a lot of events, always plays a lot of events, competes every week. The leftiness of the situation, known for playing these 3 and 4 hour absolute, just, pull them into the gutter, and we're going to have a fight for the next, 3.5 hours of your life. I'm not sure what more adjustments could be made. I don't think she's the fastest player in the world. I think she's there. I think she does the basics. She's someone you would look at as a coach of a junior player and says, you know what? She doesn't beat herself very often, right? She may not be the fastest. She may not serve the biggest. She may not have the best ball speed in the world, yet she's a fixture in the top 20, flirts with the top 10, is an absolute pain in the ass when you see her in the draw. So for 2024 is more of the same, projecting forward to 2025. Can I switch directions a little bit more against the top players? Is there a way to cheat out some easier points, whether it's return position, whether it's playing against someone's movement, whether it's, whatever it might be? Maybe it's opening up the shoulders a la Andy Murray, where anytime you get a ball that's sitting, you open up the shoulders cross court, right? And someone has to actually cheat that way, so it opens up another one. I'd be curious to hear what adjustments she is looking to be made, because she's in that position where she knows her stock game and what she throws out there and how she competes is a top 20 thing. Is she going to take massive risks as she approaches week to week? Maybe put that top 20 situation at risk for the chance of being a top 10, top 8, semifinal, final of a slam. But a lot of respect for her. She competes her ass off every week.
Yeah, she's a bit of a mystery, because sometimes you see her, and she I think she's about 6. I don't have this in front. She's about 6 feet tall. I mean, she's a big, forceful, authoritative presence, and she wins a lot of matches. The results at the majors just haven't really been there. She reached a French semifinal. I believe she lost in the first round this year on clay. Kind of a mystifying player. I think she's a good presence on tour. She competes with a smile and is popular among her teammates. 28 years old. A lot of power and a lot of size, a lot of results week to week. The major results just haven't been there, and I think that's something to watch in 2025.
And number 16 is an exciting one, because this is someone who I think JW might have jumped the gun a little bit this year with putting her in a Grand Slam final, and if he keeps doing that, he's going to be right at some point. I think the consensus around tennis universe is that Mira Andreeva will be a Grand Slam champion at some point, still super young, to put together a win-loss record of 34 and 16, which is essentially, she had been on the tour for 7-8 months. She had that breakout in Madrid 2 years ago. Pretty impressive stuff, and all without having the biggest shot on the court yet. You feel like she's still growing in to her body. Doesn't have that knockout power, so problem solves. Her ability, her variety, her ability to switch directions, even hiring Conchita Martinez as a coach, realizing, hey, listen, where do I source wisdom? And going out and finding someone like Conchita. Those are all very, very intelligent progressions on and off the court in 2024. What does she do in 2025? More of it, right? Just let the progression take hold. It's simultaneously exciting, and also the pragmatist in me is just going, do the same things for the next 3 months. And then after that, for the next 3 months, it might not go perfectly, but I think this is someone who's going to be holding a big trophy at some point.
You wonder a crazy stat?
Yes.
Can this be right? Someone check me on this. She's the only teenager in the top 100, I believe.
That's shocking.
Wasn't
for
that
women's
long
tennis
ago
too.
when when Martina, Monica Seles won what, eight majors as a teenager. Steffi won the Golden Slam as a teenager. One teenager. It's Mira Andreeva. She's 17 years old, so that means she's got 9 more majors left before she turns 20. One thing that impresses me here, sometimes we see these young players are precocious, and what do we say? Well, it's LeBron, it's Rafa, there's Jennifer Capriati, there's physical maturity. I'm not sure that's the case here. I think there's more emotional maturity, and there's a really sort of tactical, strategic game. She's not winning by serving 10 aces every set. This is just really solid, composed, poised tennis. And maybe it was a bit premature of me. You're right. I'll plead guilty to that one. May have been a little premature to start predicting or reaching major finals as a 17-year-old, but not by that much. And, she's made semis of majors already. More importantly, she's won a lot of matches. She tends to play her best at these big events. I think you're right. I mean, 17 years old, a lot of runway ahead, but I think the major in her future is a when and not an if. Lots to like here.
That's a good point you said about like someone being a phenom, but it largely being based in physical dominance, right? You look at a Capriati, you look at a Monica Seles, you mentioned Rafa Becker on the men's side, where you come out and it's like, oh my gosh, what a special athlete. I think Andreeva falls more in the category of, my mind goes to an Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, who wins Roland Garros at 17, and Martina Hingis, who is maybe one of the smartest players I've ever watched play. And if I want to take back on my dream Dingles pairing, or that I want to watch from 8 shows ago, callback, Martina Hingis would be in that group because she is such a savant and such a genius. Listen, Andreeva is going to be what she is going to be. Who knows how much she grows, how much the ball speed improves. You cannot and will not ever be able to take away her tennis brain, which is certainly outcompeting every other teenager in the world at this point. So a lot of exciting things ahead for Mira Andreeva. Number 15 is an interesting one because what she does well is so obvious. She hits it about as hard and as flat with about as little margin as any human on earth. So one Tuesday, she can absolutely drill your favorite player 2-2. The next week, she can lose to someone you've never heard of 2-2. Always with a comment, maybe a little bit of snark on the side. Jelena Ostapenko, how would you describe her to viewers and listeners who aren't fluent in the musings of Jelena Ostapenko?
Do you invest in crypto? No, there's a lot of volatility index here. And she gets, at least on tennis social media and tennis Twitter, she sort of, you speak to her and you're like, she gets it. She's cool. She understands that her on-court persona isn't necessarily off-court persona.
Is that right? I don't know her off the court at all. I only know on-court, and it's petty and it's angry sometimes, and it's annoying maybe to her opponents.
We asked her about it at Wimbledon. She came to the studio with Steve Weissman, and we were sort of joking about it. We'll show you how to shake hands properly. You look someone in the eye and you say that's a match well played. The fact that she would go through that exercise, this is someone who I think probably gets a little caught up in the heat of combat. Remember, this is a major winner. This is somebody who's she retired tomorrow and she'll forever be known as someone who won a tennis major. Some days she's on and some days she can't find the court at all. And she needs sort of GPS to find her serve. And other days you say, no wonder she won a major. it's a lot of fun to have someone like this in the cast. I mean, asking someone like that to string together 7 straight wins, that might be a bit of a challenge. Just who's so up and down. But she's 27 years old now, and I really she won that Roland Garros in 2017, and it was sort of, well, this is one of the craziest results ever. It doesn't look that crazy anymore. This is a really solid top tier player. She hasn't won a second major, but she also hasn't disappeared either. A fun person to have in the tennis cast. She'll win title. I mean, she won titles this year. This is someone who can play some really high level tennis. I just don't know. I don't know if the conditioning is there. She also plays a nice game of doubles, by the way, sidebar. Love having her in the cast. I'm not sure I'm betting on her to win a second major, but this is a force of good.
Yeah, and so this is digest this how you want. She won the least amount of matches of anyone in the top 20 this year at 29. Vika in second place at 13, but played less events than Ostapenko. So it tells you two things. A bit of a heart rate monitor, like we mentioned before, up and down, no surprise to anyone. That's like, saying gravity keeps us on the ground. But it also shows that she can win matches in big point total events. You mentioned being a Grand Slam winner. What went right? Ball went in more than it went out for her, and she is going to swing away at the next one. There's not going to be a lot of subtlety. But as you mentioned, if she's an elite striker as far as pacing the ball, she's that bad of a mover when she gets extended and tries to play defense. That's an obvious room for improvement area. You move a lot less when your second serve is better. You're normally getting that first strike in the middle of the court. Her second serve is not very good. Does she up the risk on it sometimes? Is there a way to move it around the box? Those are questions I would be asking. Sometimes you can fix a problem like movement if you're Ostapenko, or at least help it and assist it by making sure the preceding shot is a little bit more effective, right? If you can, move a couple steps less every set, then that's a net win. And in this game at the highest levels, those margins matter. So I'd be curious to see if her team is playing around with that. I would be curious to see if she's receptive to those suggestions when someone brings them to her. But listen, she's just really good, and she's really scary. I think she was 4-0 against Swiatek. Swiatek might have won one, but she has a game that is a complete disruptor if you don't like the style that she plays, right? She can really bother people with her style, as proven over and over and over again. Number 14, Anna Kalinskaya. She made a big jump this year, right? We've seen her for a lot of years. She was, coming in this year, I'm guessing she was somewhere between 60, 70, had some big successes earlier in the year over in the Middle East, and then kind of continued and had a really, really, really good year. 38 wins, 19 losses. Again, that 2-to-1 ratio is a real ratio. Someone, 45, 50 in the world, maybe 500, and she doubled them up. So she was winning a lot more matches more consistently than she was losing. Hits a huge ball off the ground, a deceiving ball. So breakout year for her. She wants to build on that success, right? Is she someone who is going to be a consistent performer in the top 15 with an eye on the top 10? Or is she someone whose upside is 15 and maybe floats between, 15 and 45? What's your take on what you saw from Kalinskaya?
Yeah, I mean, she had that magical week in Dubai where she beat. We had that on Tennis Channel. She beat Ostapenko. She beat Coco. She beat Iga. She lost to this little known player named Jasmine Paolini, who I'm sure we'll be getting to. But no, I don't know to what extent Kalinskaya is sort of maxing out and is pushing against the upper limits of her potential. Which she's a top 15 player. That's quite impressive. I'm not sure she has the signature shots and the weapons. She's a Knights athlete. I'm not sure if that was a magical week in Dubai or if this is someone who can get a lot higher than 14, but a very nice year for her. And, I do this guardedly and at our peril, but, to what extent is it going to impact her career being the significant other of the number one player on the men's tour? I usually I'm reluctant to sort of talk about relationships, how they intersect with tennis, but this seems like an extraordinary set of circumstances for any number of reasons, and I wonder how that might impact her 2025.
Something we'll probably never know, and I think I'm perfectly okay with that. I think, listen, her significant other had a career year, and props to her because she did too. Hopefully more to come for her. Another victory for college tennis. Diana Shnaider played at NC State, came out maybe the sneakiest player to have ever won 4 titles in 1 year. 4 titles in 1 year? I mean, if you put in context, there are people we talk about a lot who have won 7 or 8 career titles. And someone's like, oh, maybe some of them are at lower level events. I don't care. Winning is winning is winning is winning on the Pro Tour. Plays lefty, is able to mix things up. I like her game. I think she's capable of making big runs. Her style, the general leftiness, the way that she's able to put matches together, she's proven she can win 5 and 6 in a row, as evidenced by those 4 titles. I have a lot of fun watching Shnaider play. I really like her game.
Agree 100%. She's number 13 in the world. Never mind the fact, she had this college tennis commitment. She did very well at the Australian Open 2 years ago, kept her commitment, shows up on campus and played a college tennis season, only 20 years old. So we may only have one teenager in the top 100, but here now we're talking about 2 20 and under in the top 15. A lot to like here. This is complete marginalia, having nothing to do with anything, but the only player I think who warms up by throwing a football. She's ready to go on court, and there's a lefty spiral zinging by everyone in the tunnel. What is it? It's Diana Shnaider's warm-up entails throwing a football. So 13 is a really high ranking for a player who was, eating dorm food 18 months ago. Good for her. I agree with you a lot. I think that the lefty look is always impressive. I think her fitness is getting better. Not a big, physically imposing 6-foot-tall player, but there's a lot to like here and a lot of sort of shape and style to her game.
Who had the 3rd most match wins in the top or on tour this year? Anybody? Bueller?
Without looking it up.
Anybody? Diana Shnaider. 55.
Whoa.
3rd, ahead of Coco Gauff, just behind Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek. 55 wins is a lot of wins.
That's crazy.
You break that. That's
Taylor Fritz level wins.
Correct.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's an impressive year. I think there's more to come. I don't know that this is a career high ranking for her. Props. She competes. She finds ways to win. I've really enjoyed watching her this year, and again, just continue with this momentum. Like it's a type of player who's been playing so well this year that you almost don't want one of the few that doesn't want the offseason to come. But I like what she's doing. She, like you mentioned, she had a huge breakout, and when she came to tour full time, kept that progression going. She hasn't really had a lot of valleys so far in her career, which is telling. It means you show up every week. But 55 wins, that's a massive number. So congrats to her, and more to come in 2025. I actually like her upside a lot. Number 12 is it's just time to give props. Okay. A year ago, coming off a back fracture, saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it back, lots of stops and starts. She had been number 2 in the world. We are talking about Paula Badosa. And you tell her a year ago, with the way that she felt and the struggles that she had, that she is going to get off the mat and finish at 12 in the world. Hell of an effort from Paula Badosa. It seems like everyone on tour kind of likes her. I don't know her, but generally seems to be a champion of the locker room as well. But props to her, right? Would have been very easy to kind of go away. She put her head down, made those inroads, and got back to somewhere in the vicinity of where she probably thinks she should be. So if we were doing this a year ago, it would have been, okay, the only thing in 2024 is to work hard, get healthy. I would have said getting back into the top 50 is a great year. She said, screw that. I'll finish at 12.
She was ranked 139 at Roland Garros.
Yeah.
She started the year outside the top 100, had a tough time to start the year. I think also, she was one of actually the stars of Breakpoint. I mean, she was very candid, and we saw sort of, one thing I took away from her Breakpoint was just you saw the conflation of physical injury and mental injury. We usually say, it was a physical. Well, here's a perfect example of how these are intertwined, and when you're not healthy, that affects a lot more than the injured body part. I give her a lot of credit. This is, I don't know if we're doing sort of the standard comeback player of the year, but she would sure get my vote. And to see her at number 12, having won a lot of matches, again, 6 months ago, not in the top 100, that tells you something. This player, she got to number 2 in the world. So there's some track record here. I think, candidly, probably 2 in the world is probably deceptively, probably a little too high. But Lord knows she doesn't belong outside the top 100. So I think she ought to be really happy with her season, and we'll see how she builds on it.
Yeah, and for her, what is it now? It's building and playing well in major events. She made the quarters of the U.S. Open, had a rough one there. She just did what you're supposed to do as a professional at a certain level and got back. Not everyone gets back from those injuries, stress fractures and backs, and I'm sure there are a million other little things going on. The mental side of that, as you had mentioned, nothing but respect for her, what she did. I knew she was somewhere, I would have said probably 16, 17, 18, 12 is a real number. I mean, that's props to her. Great work. Really, really, really showing something. And listen, props. I hope for continued success, and maybe more importantly, and part of that success, continued health for Paula Badosa, because certainly tennis is better when she's there playing healthy and mixing it up. I mean, I think this was 10 out of 10 result for year end based on where she was, even as John mentioned, as recently as Roland Garros this year. Just a great job from her. And number 11. Mike?
Oh, yeah.
You know who it is?
The Danimal.
The Danimal. You love the Danimal.
So she's back.
I thought this one was going to be what went well in 2024, and we would mention Miami, and we would mention Charleston, where for a 3-week span, she was the best player on earth. And then we'd say, what has to improve in 2025? And we would say nothing, because she is retired and is going on to the next phase of her life, without getting too far into the weeds of someone's personal journey and the decisions that dictate that journey. She's back to the benefit of us all, and especially producer Mike as the number one Danimal fan.
Yeah,
you're a fanimal of the Danimal.
Yeah, huge,
big Danimal fanimal. But listen, for the 3 weeks when she was playing great. She's a great ball striker. She's great at controlling the middle of the court. For those 3 weeks, she was hitting herself out of problems from the corners. And it was almost a tale of, she built up this ranking of 11 in about 6 weeks or 8 weeks through, from Miami to Rome, basically. Took a loss early at Roland Garros. Didn't really get her footing back for the rest of the year. Struggled post-US Open. Struggled with Billie Jean King Cup. I think there were some injuries. I think there was some stuff potentially away from the tennis court. But listen, man, when she caught lightning in a bottle for those 8 weeks, it's fun to watch someone who knows exactly where the ball is going when it comes off their racket every time. And she had that for a couple of months. And it's really cool to see someone who is not 21 years old, who has been out there for a while, who have paid their dues, have been in big tournaments, win the biggest title of her career in Miami in a major prestigious event.
It was in Australia that she basically, there was nothing self-indulgent or particularly flamboyant. She just sort of flatly, is in keeping with her MO for her entire career, just flatly, no bullshit, said, this is it. This is my last year. And that really seemed to unlock something for about, and it was more than, a week or two. For a good 6 month stretch, 6 week stretch, she was like MVP of women's tennis. Cooled off a little, and as you referenced, clearly there was some things going on off the court. She now, of course, is deciding to continue on in 2025 for reasons that, as selfishly as fans and in the media, people who admire her game, great that she's playing, but these weren't the conditions under which she wanted to basically unretire. It'll be interesting to see what her mindset is in 2025. But I think this is a player, honestly, who used to be a bit polarizing, and even other players would say she's too demonstrative and the yelling and the fist pumps. And I think we're at a point now where there's not a lot of polarization going on. Very, very hard not to admire this player, and just about everybody does.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the way that she fist pumps when things are good and you feel like she has this positive groundswell of energy, you can really see it in the way that she performs, competes, and everything else. And I think the counter is true also. So really, really fun to watch. I hope we get to see more of that kind of March, April, early May type tennis from the Danimal. For those who are pod listeners, if you did not see the episode with Danielle Collins and you have a certain opinion on how she could be away from the court based on how demonstrative and in your face she is on the court, learn something about how it differs from on and off the court sometimes. I was fascinated by the interview she gave us. Introspective, pragmatic, responsible. It says she runs her life basically making the analogy that tennis players are a small business and you have to run. I thought it was a fascinating interview of which I learned a ton. A lot of times we do interviews and I know a lot going in, and my job is to make sure that that's represented in the answers that I try to get from people that I know well. I don't know Danielle Collins at all before, or I didn't before this interview. And I left that interview going, that was really interesting. I learned 7 new things about the way she goes about her business, about the way that she views the world past tennis. So go check out that old episode. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes or something. But it was really cool for us. And that was kind of in the midst of when she kind of had it going during Rome and post Miami and Charleston. But listen, we hope she gets everything she wants in her life, and we will be watching enthusiastically for her in 2025. Now 10-6. And 10 is interesting. Obviously, Barbora Krejcikova, listen, winning 21 matches and also winning a major. So a third of your wins for the entire season are in one tournament. And all of a sudden, it's weird when someone maybe isn't top of mind all of the time, right? Because they don't try to, they're not thirsty for all the attention. But then all of a sudden you look up and go, oh, wait, she's one of the best doubles players. She's won, I forget what it is, 6, 7, 8 slams in doubles, won the French Open on clay, and then wins Wimbledon. And you go, oh, okay, because she won these 2 sets this summer in a Grand Slam final, she's a surefire Hall of Famer. Am I being hyperbolic about her Hall of Fame credentials at this point, JW?
If she never had played doubles, you would say this is a Hall of Fame player. She won Roland Garros and Wimbledon. That's in. And then you say, oh, yes, this is one of the great, this is a generationally great doubles player. Yeah. And, I think a lot going into the year-end finals, there was a lot of reference to the stat that you raised, and so many of her majors came during Wimbledon. I mean, so many of her matches won. She also beat Coco and Pegula when she got there, so I thought it was nice that she could sort of, as a nice little, bookend to the year, she beat 2 top players. There's a lot to admire. I mean, I don't want to revisit this too much, but I also don't want to ignore it. I mean, one of the reasons my regrettable situation was all the more regrettable. This is such an admirable player, and this is a player who so many other, not everyone's going to be, the ball striker and the athlete of Coco or have the power of Sabalenka. How many players are there that could look at Krejcikova and say, you know what, this was a really good doubles player who said that's not good enough for me. I'm going to become a more complete player. I'm going to do it in singles as well. And here she is, 28 years old. She's the reigning Wimbledon champion and could quit playing tomorrow and is a first ballot Hall of Famer. This is a player that really is worthy of admiration.
Yeah, totally. And also, it's interesting to me because I find this type of player fascinating. And you're looking at her comp on the men's side, I think, is someone like a Stan Wawrinka, right? Whose results aren't a given. The years in the top 10 might not have been a decade, right? But his top level, when he was firing, was good enough to beat the best in the world in the biggest tournaments, right? That's Barbora Krejcikova, right? When she is playing, she finds that top level. She gets that feeling, that moment. She's not bothered by playing a semifinal in a major. It's that journey to find her top level because she plays a little bit riskier, because she plays a little bit more aggressive. But when she gets it, shit, you gotta be kind of brave to bet against her if she finds it and is in the semis finals of a Grand Slam. And you talk about being a complete player. Yeah, complete enough to win on clay a major, and on grass a major, and that's only on the single side.
17 of her wins this year came in the finals, the Olympics, or in 2 slams.
Yeah, obviously what went right in 2024, winning 7 on the trot at Wimbledon. Simply. That's a career defining, wrap it up, welcome to Newport. You're in the Hall of Fame, has to feel pretty good. You look forward to 2025. Can we do it more often? Can I double my win total? I won 21 matches in a year. That's not a normal thing to say. This is the year where I cemented my place beyond reproach in the Hall of Fame, and I won 21 singles matches, which is by far the least in the top 20 by 9.
Wow.
By 9 matches is the next closest comp. So she is this fascinating character of she's consistently great when she finds that level and beautifully, poetically inconsistent while she's searching for it, right? But when she finds it and it's there, you see her in the 3rd or 4th round of a Grand Slam and she tunes someone up, you're going, uh-oh, it's a problem.
Well, and she knows it too, right? I mean, how much confidence must it give her to know, listen, when I'm at my best, I'm a multiple major winner. And again, I like how she closed out the year. If there were any doubts that she belonged in Saudi Arabia, who's the one player that beat Coco in Riyadh? Well, it's Barbora Krejcikova.
She's not scared of the best players in the world, simply. She's just not.
Yeah.
She's just not. She's not as consistent as they are. But her top level is as good and better on a lot of days than the top player in the world. So listen, if you told her at the beginning of the year that you were going to win 21 matches, you're going to go 21-16, she'd be like, oh, but you also win Wimbledon. Yep. Thank you. You can take away 300 of my match wins. I'll take that. No problem. You can have them. I'll trade you straight up. You got it. No problem. But props to her, just an uber professional, one of the good characters of the game. And listen, for 2025, what do we hope for? Listen, I'd hope for lightning in a bottle where all of a sudden she's in the semis and daring people to bet against her again, because she is certainly capable of going end to end. And an interesting, at 9, it's an interesting thing on the heels of Krejcikova because Kasatkina is just really good. She's an interesting story. John, I know you spent time with her this year, so you probably have a little bit more color on the personality behind what we're talking about. It's no surprise that she's in the top 10, but maybe the other side of Krejcikova, kind of more like me, frankly, I had a hard time beating the greats in the game on the biggest stages just because I couldn't find ways once we got neutral to affect them negatively often enough, right? Whereas Krejcikova, Wawrinka, maybe they didn't have the level of consistency where you could slot them into the quarters every week, but their top side was there. Kasatkina is bankable. She is reliable. She's going to win 40 matches a year, and I don't say that to undersell, but does she have the firepower to make a Grand Slam final, to bother a Swiatek or Sabalenka when they are in full flight? Maybe not to this point in her career, but just what a responsible citizen of the game. And JW, expand on the time you spent with her this year.
Yeah, I'd say responsible citizen of the world. This is a this is a player from, and maybe we can include the link in the show notes. But this is a player from Russia who has taken great issue with Putin's Russia, with LGBT policy in particular, and is basically whatever the equivalent of putting her money where her mouth is. She no longer is based in Russia and has not been home in a long time. And this is she said, look, I'm not a political person. I'm not banging on a soapbox. I don't feel comfortable playing this country. And she's essentially lived out of a bag since then. There's no grandstanding here. There's just somebody who's very firm in their convictions. And there's a lot of courage here. This is a story that she told me very reluctantly and very sort of self-effacingly. This is not a great necessarily a cause of hers, just personally as a question of her values and ethics. She does not feel comfortable sort of representing Putin's Russia, and essentially no longer does. And we can talk about the tennis, and there's a nice athlete with a fluid game, and she plays creatively. There's not a lot in the way of weaponry, and I think that's going to keep her perhaps from winning majors. This is not someone who hits the ball particularly hard or necessarily has a lot of firepower to counter someone like a Sabalenka or an Iga, but as a member of the tennis citizenry, as someone sort of the tennis social compact, I don't know how you don't root for this person. It's really an act of quiet courage, and I was happy to tell the story. And it sort of, in my eyes, makes the tennis secondary. She's a top 10 player. I don't think it's a whole lot more than that just because of the power, but the tennis is really the least of it.
Name the American woman who had the most tour wins this year.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Is it number 8?
It's number 8 is tied with the name everyone would probably shouting at their, screens, phones, whatever else. 54 wins. Emma Navarro breaks out, beats Coco twice in majors. You recently spent some time with Emma as well, but I just like everything about her game. She doesn't show. Listen, different personalities in tennis. We've gone, from Ostapenko, who will side-eye the shit out of you, to Danielle Collins, who will get right up in your face, to Emma Navarro, where you never know if she's perfectly content or freaking out. She just doesn't give it. She doesn't give it away. I love her game. I love where she's come from. Another poster child of success for college tennis, having played at Virginia, but a real breakout star of 2024.
I'll give you a little glimpse. We spoke a few days ago, and she was sort of telling me her schedule, and she's heading down to Australia on Christmas Eve on December 24th. And I sort of said, you do the leading question. Oh, this is tennis's crazy calendar. And she said, you know what? We'll do Christmas Eve on the 23rd and pretend it's Christmas Eve, and I'll just reverse. We'll adjust it. I'll go at the appointed time, and I feel like I won't miss anything. And I thought that was such a window into her mentality. This is someone whose default position is positive. I mean, she's very organized on the court, but also very positive on the court. I don't know if she necessarily, this is not like a USTA darling who everybody had been hyping since she was 14 years old. I think quite the contrary. She went to, she committed to Duke, changed to UVA. That sounds about right. Hey, she had a very nice college season, won the NCAA title as a freshman. I don't think anyone saw this top 10 showing, but she did. And she's won a lot of matches. This is not a flashy player. She plays tennis. She does not perform it. There's not a lot of look at me here. It's just really solid, poised tennis. She's beaten Coco at the last 2 majors, coming off a U.S. Open semi. Number 8 in the world, and I suspect she could still walk down Broadway and go many blocks before being recognized, and I don't think that bothers her. This is someone just fully committed to incremental improvement, and the increments have been coming fast and furious.
54 wins, a lot of those in big matches at majors. Absolute breakout star of 2024, Emma Navarro, shining at her home slam, beating Coco and advancing to the semis there. Just everyone likes her. You get the pulse. Lindsay Davenport came on the show and cussed me out because I said she couldn't rap. She creates this. The people that know her really want to support her, are effusive about her work, the way she goes about her business, which is great. And it comes across when she plays. So hopefully more continued success for her in 2025. Number 7 is really interesting because if you talk about going back like 10 months, I remember early in 2024, I was communicating a little bit with Jess Pegula, had broken up with her longtime coach, David Witt. Kind of thought that 2023 had gone on a little long. Maybe the workload of playing singles and doubles had finally come to, it was a check that needed to be paid at some point. Having those conversations on what's next and, what do I do? And just having reference point. I know Lindsay was in a lot of those conversations with Jess Pegula as, a bit of an informal advisor, as well as she's going to kind of putting the next steps together. It's weird having that moment, having that beat where you're kind of forced not to play, pulling out of some hardcourt events early in the year, which is her best surface, at least to this point, and then making hard changes, right? Getting out of the comfortable cycle of a coaching-player relationship that had largely surpassed what anyone thought was possible. Having the guts to do stuff because you're still forward-looking at 30 years old is a big deal. And what happened? I guarantee you, she's finished a year at 3 in the world. I guarantee you this 7 feels better for what she did at the U.S. Open. And she finally said, you know what? Take all those narratives about me never getting past the quarters. One of my most emotional endings to a match that I was watching this year, I was in the Arthur Ashe Stadium when she beat Swiatek. And it was this, I took a deep breath and I was like, I was so happy for Jess Pegula, made a lot of gutsy calls, bet on herself, and almost won the U.S. Open. I guarantee you this 7 next to her name feels better than years where she's finished with a higher number.
I think especially the sequence of it, where it was a rough 6 months and there was some burnout here. I mean, there's a family situation people can read about that must be an additional burden and concern. She didn't play the French Open, and then to turn in this level in the latter half of the year. And you mentioned the match against Iga that she won at the U.S. Open. She finally gets to that semifinal, and what does she do in the semifinal? She has another gutty win there to get to her first major final. And you're right. I mean, sometimes a year it's not unlike Krejcikova, right? I think on balance, Jess Pegula probably signs up for this year. She did not finish higher than she did the previous year, but the way she turned things around, again, 6 months in, sort of had to make some changes. I'm 30 years old. I don't want this to be the end of the ride. And to have this year turn out the way it did in the latter half in particular, getting to that U.S. Open final, I suspect, like you say, this was a preferable year to finishing in the top 5, but not having this kind of a major result.
Yeah, and props to the Marks. Mark Marklin, our friend Mark Knowles, who we
Bahama Marks.
That's right. We just spent some time with. Props to them, because it's not always easy to take on, you don't want to say project, but someone who it's very obvious what the goal is. And the pressure set of that goal is very clear. We have to make it further in a Grand Slam. We've done a lot of the other things. We've beaten all of the players in various events. We just have to make it further in a big event. You like seeing the risks taken by Jess, the risks taken by the Marks, rewarded in an accomplishment of said goals or said goal. And props to Jess Pegula. She is one of the good ones in tennis. She will have an offseason to digest, recover emotionally. She has a lot of green space ahead of her, a lot of runway early in this year to move up those rankings. She is basically like a nothing burger through April, May of this year. So a lot of space for her to improve on that 7 ranking. But I assure you, a 7 finishing the year at number 7 when you've been as high as 3 has rarely felt so good for someone. Props to Jess Pegula. Elena Rybakina at number 6. Simply one of the best players in the world, right? Rocky coaching relationship. It has been, the details have been scarce. It's the serve is so obviously good. You know, for my money, when it's going, the best serve in women's tennis. Doesn't show you anything on court, but you know that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Recently made headlines for hiring Goran Ivanisevic as her coach, which I didn't have a pulse on at all, hadn't heard anything about it. I like this partnership just basically because Goran has a sense of humor. It absolutely flies in the face of what you think and what you've heard that her life must have been like in her previous coaching relationship. So I hope she finds that space. I hope she finds that joy. I hope we see more of her on court. Didn't play a lot of events this year. You know, had a 42-11 record. So not a lot of tennis for her. I hope we see her on court more. I hope we see her on court happier. And I am fascinated by this new team of Goran Ivanisevic coming from, I don't think he's ever coached on the women's side, to the women's game. Curious to see that impact, and looking forward to her happy, healthy, and playing in 2025.
Yeah, well said. I mean, this is a player who, she started out the year, she goes to Brisbane, she gets to the final, she plays Sabalenka and beats Aryna Sabalenka like, I don't know, in front of like 0-3, like just blitzed her in the final to start the year. And you say, whoa, this is someone who's already won a major. She had reached the final of Australia the previous year. Look out for Rybakina. Since then, including the Australian Open, a lot of sort of mystery shrouded here. This is someone who's had various health challenges, and that's impacted her year a great deal. For her, to finish the year as strongly as she did, played well in Saudi Arabia to close out the year, and now looking forward with a new coach, as you say, somebody who is going to be a source of joy. It's going to be a much different vibe in that camp, someone who's, a fellow Wimbledon champion. A lot to like going forward. Candidly, this a lot of mystery here. I mean, there was a lot of intrigue and rumor and innuendo, and some of this is social media, but some of this is deep inside the WTA. There was a bit of concern here, but I think this story ended 2024 on a happy note, and I think there's a lot of high expectation and a lot of anticipation what she's able to do with a new coach, one who has won Wimbledon. And also, keep in mind, it's coming off a very successful run with Novak. So Goran is a source of intrigue, and hopefully the Rybakina story will get back on track.
It was good to see her show up at World Tour Finals too, as opposed to just taking a pass on the rest of the year. Obviously short on matches, hadn't played at all, and then when your re-entry to tour is against the best players in the world, it's obviously going to be rocky. But I like the fact that she did that. I think that will serve her well. That's a good decision in my mind from where I sit as the Monday morning quarterback going into 2025. But listen, if she's healthy, simply she's in that conversation as favorites to win majors, especially on grass, faster surfaces. Hopefully, we see more health for her in 2025. Queen Wen. And I say Queen Wen because it's a nickname. Queen. She's a queen. Queen Wen. She won the Olympics. I'm going to call Alcaraz Chuckster in the next episode. I'll save you so get out of my comments. What a breakout year, though, for becoming just an absolute superstar in China, delivering gold medal, playing well week to week, putting herself in that top 5. The athleticism, the power, stepping up when it matters, beating Swiatek on clay. I mean, it's just a lot of things went right for her. She handled it all beautifully. An interesting personality, basically saying, I don't need friends on tour. Like, I like the differences in personalities. I think it's what makes tennis fun. You're allowed to fight with people. I've fought with a lot of people who I'm close with. Like, that's what happens in tennis. Like, frankly, like if we had a camera on your worst day of work, it would look bad too. Simply. But one of the things that she's going to need to solve for, and the matchup that exposes it the most is Sabalenka, right? She needs a little bit of time on that forehand side. When someone can beat her to the punch, she needs to be able to accept power a little bit easier and neutralize that power. That's going to be the thing that gets her from 5 to looking at the number 1 ranking. If she can ever get there, she's going to have to accept her shot tolerance, I think, has to improve. But listen, she's proven in 2024 that she's not scared to improve her game. What a year for her.
Yeah, I remember at the U.S. Open, someone said, boy, what's going to happen when she goes back to China? How's she going to be received coming, after the gold medal? And someone said, no, you don't understand. She's already been back. The Chinese delegation wanted her for some ceremony. So at some point between like Cincinnati and the U.S. Open, she had to fly back to China. And you're a little concerned. You say, well, you come from the most populous country in the world and you're this new star and you've won this gold medal. Even after this huge triumph, this absolutely sort of transformative Olympic gold medal and everything that comes with it, especially coming from a country like China, she still won almost 24 matches. So, I mean, there is a great deal to be optimistic about. We also forget this is someone who reached the final of Australia to kick off the year. So really a breakthrough season for a star. She's 22 years old. You mentioned that the personality and sort of the Maria Sharapova attitude is I'm here to win tennis matches and not make friends. But I don't really see that, honestly. I mean, she was at her hotel in Paris for Roland Garros, and she was sort of very, very social and outgoing and giving a tutorial on how to pronounce her name. I think there's a lot to like here. I think this is a real future star for the WTA. And I think her match record the Olympics was a great triumph. That will define her career at some level. But what she did post Paris, winning all those matches, including back in China with the pressure, that says almost as much to me as her winning that gold medal initially. So buy this stock, 22 years old.
And she's now in that position where it's kind of major or bust, because she has proven how good she is consistently. We will be looking at her if 5 years pass and she hasn't won one. We're going, man, we thought she was going to deliver one. And she's proven that she can on the biggest moments, obviously with the Olympics. Let me tell you this, raise your hand if on your bingo card, you had someone who had never finished a year top 25, making consecutive major finals and finishing 4 in the world at 28, 29 years old later on in her career. What a year for Jasmine Paolini. Just an absolute shot of life into the tennis world this year. JW and I agree on a lot of things. I full-heartedly disagree with him disagreeing with Coach of the Year, because I value Coach of the Year, and props to Renzo Furlan for moving. I call it the Magnus Norman effect, right? Magnus Norman goes and takes Stan Wawrinka from 30 in the world up to 5. He's done it repeatedly with multiple people. I think progress and improvement, taking someone from 1 to 1 or 1 to 2, I don't think the number one player in the world should automatically get their coach to be named Coach of the Year. I think at certain points in their careers, my cat could have coached Roger Federer to the number 1 ranking. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but take nothing away from Jasmine Paolini. What a story she was in 2024. I don't care about what she does in 2025. I don't even want to go there, because talk about maximizing your skill set for a given year on the biggest of stages, in stages that frankly you hadn't performed on the singles court in your entire career. No one saw this coming. Biggest upset of the entire year as far as where they finished in the rankings, and I am here for it. Loved watching her this year.
And that's part of it too. Not only is just a pleasure to watch a mid-career player take a leap like this. I mean, she hadn't been beyond the second round of a major for her entire career. She's 28 years old. But I also just the way she did it. I mean, usually sometimes bio pages or exercises in fiction, and you never quite believe the number. She's listed at 5'4". So you figure 5'4" is probably generous for her to come with that game. And sort of the inherent disadvantages of sometimes being 8-9 inches smaller than the opponent on the other side of the net, to perform her duties, to do it with that level of joy. She was a great interview. She was great point to point. She had sort of this magical spring, and then she kept it going. Hey, she's wins Dubai and then keeps it going, gets to the Roland Garros final. And the fact that the story just kept perpetuating itself, it really was a joy to behold. This was one of the great sources of light in tennis in 2024. Bear in mind, too, she's also an extraordinary doubles player. We can
Olympics.
Table discussion about Coach of the Year for another time. This is one of the all-time great sort of emerging players of the year. Ironically enough, she did not win that award from the WTA for reasons we don't have to go into. But just this looks like an all-time, whatever the category you want, most improved player or breakthrough player. This was an all-time tennis breakthrough, and it was a joy to behold.
It was great. Now, you want to know a real sign of greatness is when things go wrong. Things go massively wrong throughout your year. Right? You lose the ability to hit a certain shot. And do we think establishing a floor of 3 in the world is pretty good when all of that shit has gone wrong? Break up with a coach, tens of double faults in certain matches. What a bar that Coco Gauff has set. I'm almost more impressed, because if this is what happens during a year when she's quote unquote struggling, when she finds it, the way she's looked post US Open, props to Matt Daly taking over for BG, who by the way came in and won the US Open. So let's not let that breakup get carried away. They would have taken that in a heartbeat when they got together. Matt Daly switching the grip on the serve, looked a lot better, a lot of progress, winning World Tour finals. Coco Gauff, just an absolute force in tennis. How is she going to follow up winning the US Open? How about having a lot of people say a lot of things, a lot of chatter, and finishing at 3 in the world? What's going to happen when things start going right all the time for Coco Gauff?
People are going to look at her 2024, and the one number that's going to stick out is, and I'm calling it up here, 9,353,847. She won almost $10 million in prize money. And obviously the bulk of that came from winning in Riyadh. What's more impressive to me, 54 singles wins. This is the anti-Krejcikova year, right? I mean, she didn't even get to a major but she didn't get to a major final. 54 wins in a year that saw a change to her game, that saw a coaching change, that saw her win the previous major of 2023 and not get back on the board. If this is an adjustment year, if this is a transition year, 54 match wins says an awful lot about what the level of quality is. And, we talk a lot about Coco. We talk a lot about how much there is to like about her game and athleticism, but also how much to like about just the way she carries out her business. Keep in mind, this is someone who still cannot legally drink alcohol in the United States. I mean, she doesn't turn 21 until in March, I believe it is, until March. If every player had a sort of a B plus year, winning almost $10 million, more than 50 matches, and adjusting with such grace to some of the changes she made, never mind doing it at age 20. This certainly augurs well for what's to come.
Not to mention dealing with all the other stuff, being flag bearer at the Olympics and a million other things and the responsibilities that fall on her. And let me kind of walk you through the progression of how shit works, right? If your second serve is really struggling and is really bad, and your least favorite side to hit the tennis ball on is your forehand side, the worse you're hitting your second serve, the more often you're hitting your second serve, the more reps you're going to get on the forehand side. Therefore, the forehand looks worse than it actually is. I'm just telling you that. The more you're struggling with, the more she struggles with her serve, the more she's hitting forehands in defensive positions and getting bullied to that side because the book is out. Now, imagine the book being out and people still not being able to stop it when she is struggling as much as she's going to struggle. I am weirdly almost more impressed with this year and what she's done than the best of times. Because if this is how she deals with tough times, when shit starts rolling at the beginning of the year, getting that win against Iga, which is her toughest matchup, is a big, big deal. Props to Coco. All of us dummies that question stuff are out there. She's going to be fine, great. I can't wait for 2025. Kind of a clean slate. She's had some time in the offseason to really work. The grip adjustment on the serve, has actually committed to making that change as opposed to kind of being guarded with what kind of changes she wanted to make last offseason, maybe protecting a little bit more than going after it, limited in what was allowed to be changed. Lot to look forward to for Coco. Really happy with the way that she finished the year. Big fan of her game, bigger fan of her as a person. Can't wait for 2025. Number 2, how's this for most wins on tour, least amount of losses, finished 2 in the world. You now have 5 Grand Slams, 61-9 on the year, best win percentage on tour. And yet we're going to talk about what she can improve on. And there are still multiple things. That's a good position to be in if you're world number 2. Obviously, recent news about testing positive for a contaminated melatonin. I don't think that makes her a bad person. Call me crazy. I don't think taking, with the intent of taking a melatonin to get some sleep for jet lag, and being proven right that everything in that batch is also contaminated. Your story checks out. Everyone agrees that your story checks out. My only concern about Iga Swiatek at scale is how she lands in Australia, how she deals with the questions. Because what's going to happen is she's going to give the same answer to the same question every day for the next 3 months. And lesser people would become impatient. I certainly would have. She is sensitive. You can see her emote more than a Jannik Sinner who keeps things pretty calm, pretty tight. I am just concerned about a coaching change, this news coming out, how she shows up in Australia. Obviously needs to perform a little bit better in slams outside of the French Open, which she isn't even leasing. She owns at this point. But if we talk about a floor for Coco, how about a floor of 61-9, however many Masters 1000 titles, French Open? Listen, chuckers like me would have taken that year every year for our career, and yet she still has a lot that she can improve on going into 2025. Pretty good place to be.
She, I still remember that match at Roland Garros when she plays Naomi Osaka, and it's this really high level tennis match between 2 players. I think at the time they'd each won 4 majors. Naomi had match points, and Iga Swiatek basically just said, I am not leaving this court as anything other than the player with the bigger number on the scoreboard. I'm not losing this match. She showed real fight that I don't think is, this is not a particularly expressive or emotive player. She's not a trash talker, but what she did that afternoon to just basically say, I commend you. You are a worthy opponent, but I will be winning today. She does a courtside interview, though, and what is the first thing? She talks about the crowd and booing and when it's not appropriate. And it struck me there were really these two sort of different instincts. And one of them was this really ferocious competitor, especially at Roland Garros. And the other is, this is someone who's really sensitive. And this is someone who notices sort of the crowd behavior. This is someone who does not necessarily wear the cloak of celebrity very easily and naturally. And spinning that forward to what you were talking about, Andy, I do think that these allegations, I think most people within tennis see this for what it is, which is bad luck more than anything else. There's nothing really nefarious here. But I do think that it will be interesting to see how someone so sensitive responds to this. Never mind the fact that she's doing so with a new coaching dynamic. And she's doing so with, after Roland Garros, she did not have the success she anticipated. She did not go back to Roland Garros and win an Olympic gold medal, which is something that was clearly, if you saw the video of that, was something clearly disturbing. So, I mean, her tennis is beyond reproach. This is, again, a figure that you really admire. I wonder how this dissonance, how this little blip and everything that goes with it, what you say, the press conference questions, the sideways glances, the social media crap, I kind of worry how that is going to impact her. Not adversely, one hopes, but this is a really sensitive soul. This is sort of a delicate instrument, and I think that's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Delicate instrument that'll kick your ass. I'll tell you that much. She'll rip your head off. She is an absolute monster on the court in all the best ways. 61-9, a major title. I'd say more often than not, that's pretty good to put you in the Player of the Year category. Not in my opinion this year, not to be. She certainly has had that award on lockdown. Curious to see if there's any disagreement here. I'd be surprised if there was. Aryna Sabalenka, 2 majors this year, amongst many other things, and doing it her way. We've talked about it. We did an episode with Aryna a couple of weeks ago. Go check that out in our library if you can. Shoots her shot, is so confident now. 5-all, 30-all. She's going to be on the front foot. She is not changing, and she'll emote. You'll be like, oh, is she falling apart? I remember watching the U.S. Open finals, like, here it goes. I'm going, no. I don't care what she does in between points. She's going to show up for the next point and shoot it again. She has become one of the most consistent players, formerly known as maybe an arbiter of inconsistency. Listen, this amount of major titles later, year-end number 1, which is a very important step for a player of her caliber to put in the belt of accomplishment. What's there not to like about Aryna Sabalenka at this point in her career?
And this is such a different sort of presentation from what we're used to as a top player. This is someone whose tennis is all business. Her record speaks for itself. She won half the majors that were held. The fact that she does it with this generosity of spirit, to me, is such a shame. This is someone who lacks inhibition. She knows who she is. There's a lot of there's dancing, there's smiles, there's partying. I think that there's something really instructive here, which is, you know what, you can take your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And this was just such a winning year for her in so many ways. There was a personal tragedy mixed in there that she handled that with grace, and certainly didn't seem to have any adverse impact on her tennis. Someone was asking me, they said, if you could do a story now on one tennis player for 60 minutes, just introduce him to the world. We're not talking about backhands and forehands. We're just saying, hey, this is someone worthy of being on your radar. Who would it be? And she was the first answer I came up with. We can, again, table this for another time. If she's from Des Moines, Iowa, or from Laguna Beach or Boca, I think she might track differently with an American audience than she does coming from Belarus. But this is someone where it's so fun to see a player overcome themselves at some level. I mean, we don't even talk about it. She's serving underhanded at a major.
Serving yips.
That was the level of
yes.
And look where she is now.
It's amazing. Overcoming personal tragedy, overcoming serving yips, overcoming a reputation for inconsistency, all the while never once second guessing the way that she was meant to do it, right? With a smile on her face, dancing with her team. I just find her so unique and so interesting. And I think there's a level of depth there that isn't instantly obvious as she's joking and laughing and all of those things. But player of the year, 2 majors, speaks volumes, finishing number 1 in the world. Happy to see it. What a great year on the WTA tour. Producer Mike, you got anything?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I feel like we went through our own little list of who the top accolades are. I feel like you guys said that Mira Andreeva was the rising star of the year. Paula was comeback player of the year.
Yep.
Jasmine Paolini is breakout player of the year.
Or improved.
Yeah. Improved. But I think one thing we were talking about before the show started, who do you think outside of the top 20, in 2025 potentially has the best chance to win a slam?
Muchova.
Yeah.
Karolina Muchova.
Currently ranked 22.
She is an amazing player. The only thing separating her from the top 5 is health. And she can bother everyone. She would be I think she's on my top 5 list of people who could win a slam next year. Mark it.
What
she can win it. She can win a major.
You want a hot take?
Yes.
Best player never to have won a major. Karolina Muchova. And that is much more about her potential than any sort of squandered opportunity or anything like that. She is an athlete. She's played deep into majors. I mean, remember, this is someone who was injured for much of this year and still finished the year by getting to her 2nd straight U.S. Open semi. She's been to a Roland Garros final and gave Iga her toughest match in a final that Iga's had in Paris. Muchova. Interesting that there is a player with 4 majors who is actually younger than Muchova.
Osaka.
Who I don't think we discussed her once this last hour.
58 in the world finished. The goal is to get back. We'll see what she brings next year. My only argument with Muchova being the best player to have not won a major is Pegula's resume. But I think that's up for discussion. Just as far as upside in the way they play, the differentiated brand of tennis, Muchova is going to have a career year in 2025. That's my prediction for the year. This has kind of been the year in review, WTA style. This is part 1. We're going to do the same thing with the ATP Tour. I'm thinking maybe we did top 20 here by the book. I'm thinking top 15 and maybe John and I sprinkle in 2 or 3 kind of dealer's choice for the ATP as I'm looking at the rankings. But hope everyone is enjoying a happy holiday season. JW, you got something?
Yeah, let's just big picture this. This is the first year that we've done this. We have the good fortune of experimenting. It's been a really fun year for us and for Served. And I think that, we could have done a year-end show and gone through categories and who's the MVP and blah, blah. I think this was an interesting way to do it. I'm sure our listeners might have thoughts here. But yeah, I think instead of just having the usual categories and popping off and having hot takes, I think this was a fun way to do it. Start from, start and work our way up to number 1, project a little bit forward into the future. And I commend you on this idea, Andy. I think this is a good way to do a year-end wrap.
Yeah, hit us in the comments too. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, we can always tell you that the moment of the year was we were all weepy over Rafa, but we did an entire episode about that, which is what we were largely trying to avoid. I do feel like we've done a disservice to the beekeeper in Indian Wells because we haven't found a way for an award to get him in there, which I regret. But listen, it's been a great year. I hope you all are enjoying a happy holiday season. This is part 1 year in review. This is the WTA version. We'll be back next week, or it'll be next week's episode.
With
the ATP. I'm thinking top 15 and then dealer's choice for the ATP is where I'm leaning right now. Thank you. What a year you've made it for Served. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.